Hello, my name is Caitlin, and Despicable Me 4 is about to come out. And the franchise has had a crazy ride, with the first movie coming out in July 2010 and still holding a general interest with audiences over a decade later with now 6 films and like 20 shorts. It has been a jam-packed 15 years of Minions. The first Despicable Me movie is also the first film by Illumination, who used to be called Illumination Entertainment. And while people might have some issues with the studios, they'll be around for a while, probably. And all the ups and downs they've had are thanks to their first movie, Despicable Me. The first Despicable Me movie opens up with a heist. Most of the films open up with a heist. And it nicely sets up a world where supervillains not only exist, but are everyday occurrences. They go around town and just take part in everyday life with all the normies. And no, there are not any superheroes. I think at some point in production they were going to add superheroes, and that just never came to be. So there's no heroes to stop a villain from stealing the pyramids or statues of Las Vegas. We see our main character Gru go through his average day, cutting in line, ignoring orphans selling cookies, and just getting to be comfortable with how awful of a person he is on average. Gru ends up being denied a loan from the Bank of Evil and spies on an up-and-coming villain called Vector. Through spying and failing to break into Vector's home, Gru comes up with a plan to adopt the orphan girls and use them to break into Vector's home and steal his shrink ray. Gru lies to be approved to adopt the orphans, and once they arrive, they are not keen on each other. Margot, Edith, and Agnes. Agnes is kind of excited. She doesn't care. Edith is like whatever. Margot is moody and just not into Gru. Not that Gru cares, he just sees them as pawns in his plan. He barely blinks an eye when Edith almost dies, because as far as he's concerned, his plan can still work with 2 of the girls. Because Gru had an awful childhood, he had plans to treat the girls awfully, like have them eat out of dog bowls. But that doesn't really pan out. The girls don't listen to him, and they kind of just do what they want and go into his lair, where he tries to tell them that he's not a dentist, he's a secret agent. They don't buy it. And so time moves on, where Gru just wants them to go deliver cookies so he can have his cookie robots help him break in and get the shrink ray, and the girls just kind of go about their days, where they go to dance class and kind of ignore him like the kids are going to do what they want. How are 3 orphan girls in dance class? I don't know. But he caves and he takes them there and inadvertently charms all the other moms. Afterward, they go to an amusement park and continue to bond there through destruction, but bonding nonetheless. And it was really nice that the animators or the writers gave what I thought was a pretty accurate portrayal of children. Sometimes they're just going to be defiant, they're going to be annoying, but people fall in love with them anyway. And I like that. Unfortunately, believing that the girls are too much of a distraction to Gru, Dr. Nefario calls the orphanage owner Miss Hattie and has the girls taken back. I didn't talk about Dr. Nefario before. He's Gru's evil scientist worker, and I don't care about him. He's in the movies, and I literally don't care about him. This decision upsets everybody, but nonetheless, Gru misses the girls, and the girls miss him, but he goes through with his scheme and successfully shrinks the moon and steals it. He tries to go to the girls' ballet recital, but not only is it over, Vector has kidnapped the girls, which is also going to be a reoccurring thing in these movies. Gru is able to rescue the girls and apologizes to them and has guardianship over them again. The moon is also returned and Vector is stranded on it. Dance party ending. This is an adorable story, and for the first film in a new animation studio, it looks very good. The Minions have gone through a lot of character design changes, and I'm glad with their final look. It's simple, it's cute, it's a little ugly. I think it's the perfect design for a character that you're going to turn into your Mickey Mouse or your SpongeBob. And while the Minions are kind of like all over the movie, naturally, they are not an overwhelming presence. Seeing Gru change throughout the film was also very well done, especially with how crappy of a person Gru was in the beginning of the film, freezing people, wrecking stuff, just showing little regard for others. But then he's really nervous when it comes to Miss Hattie or the guy at the bank, because those interactions are important to him and he wants to get something out of it. I enjoyed how he was a nice enough boss to the Minions. The girls were likable enough, even though I have a love-hate relationship with Margot because someone in my family said I looked like her and they wouldn't let it go, and yeah, that got annoying to me. Speaking of Margot, I really liked how she was like the mom of the girls, but throughout the course of the film, she slowly turned more into a kid, which was nice. But did you see the Despicable Me office opening? That is wild. It is like creepy but good at the same time. Also, I did not realize this when I originally watched it, but Vector took the pyramid and then painted it like the sky and just had it next to his house. I don't know why I didn't realize that at first, but moving on to Despicable Me 2. Because since the first one made $500 million, of course they're going to jump right onto the sequel. Of course, we start with another heist in a secret laboratory in the Arctic Circle. But that's not really important right now. We're going to go to Agnes's birthday party. How old is she turning? I don't remember. It doesn't really matter. It's not like these characters age ever. And since Gru is so committed to being a good dad, he dresses up as the fairy princess because the woman who was supposed to show up, I don't know, she was sick or something, so he filled in the role himself. And it was very sweet that Agnes recognized it and appreciated what he did anyway, instead of getting upset about it. That is a nice, not spoiled child. Doting father. Women like that. Who knew women would prefer care and effort versus weaponized incompetence? Anyway, moving on. Lucy Wilde shows up and explains that she is an agent from AVL, which stands for Anti-Villain League, and stuffs Gru in her trunk and takes him to her boss. And these secret organizations are really bad at being secret. They explain that they want Gru's help to find out which shop owner in a mall stole the secret serum from the beginning of the film, and Gru is not interested. He leaves, telling them to just call next time. Edith then asks Gru if he is scared about his upcoming date, and we see a young Gru back in 1969, so most likely after the Minions arrived in his life. And yeah, it doesn't go over well when he just touches a girl. What is this bitch's problem? Like, shut up. And Gru is most likely a 40-year-old virgin. Minions are doing minion things, trying to make jams and jellies. Dr. Nefario is here, but who cares? He quits for another job. Because again, I don't really care about what he is doing. And some other random stuff. The girls are trying to set up Gru for online dating. But Gru tells the girls that he's going to be a undercover secret agent, which I thought was funny because that was the lie he told them in the first movie, and now it's true. At his undercover cupcake shop, a man named Eduardo comes in, and Gru recognizes him as a villain named El Macho. Even though El Macho was believed to have died 20 years ago in an over-the-top fashion, they never found his body, and Gru passionately believes that this man, Eduardo, is El Macho. There's also a scene of Agnes trying to recite some lines for a Mother's Day presentation they have at school, but it comes off as very robotic because she doesn't have a mother. Honestly, just more stuffed in there to be like, the girls need a mom now. As if he didn't know where it was going to end up with Lucy and Gru. Gru's the only one focusing on Eduardo because the AVL want him to at least try to look at the other people in the mall, see if any of them stole the serum from the beginning. But after Eduardo's son flirts with Margot, Gru is back on Eduardo. Eduardo also invites Gru and his family to his Cinco de Mayo party. And yes, that's going to be a big thing later. Gru is set up on a bad blind date only to have Lucy step in and tranquilize this woman. And it's like, fine, I was sick of listening to Louise Belcher anyway, but did she really need to be tranquilized and tossed around like a rag doll? Yeah, it was kind of funny. The AVL end up arresting someone else after finding a nearly empty vial of serum in his shop. And the AVL reassigns Lucy to some other assignment in Australia, leaving both her and Gru upset. But you know, they're not going to say anything yet, so we'll get there. And shocker, Eduardo reveals he is El Macho, and Gru was right all along. Who would have known? El Macho also hired Dr. Nefario, but I don't care. What we do care about is that he kidnapped most of the minions and mutated them. So if you ever saw those purple minion things, that's what that's about. And he wants to use them to conquer the world. And he offers Gru a partnership, but Gru leaves with the girls terrified. So El Macho sends one of the minions after them. Lucy is so in love with Gru that she sees his face everywhere, and as one of my worst fears, opens the door to a moving airplane and jumps out the door. I know it's not really possible because the air pressure keeps the door down, so you can't really just open it and you won't get sucked out and die, but it's my irrational fear. And the ocean, but that's another day. Dr. Nefario ends up bringing the antidote, which is nice of him, and they put it in one of the jams or jellies that Gru was trying to make and use it to cure all the minions. El Macho threatens to kill Lucy at the volcano where he actually faked his death, but he's beaten by Gru and the others. Lucy is saved, and 147 dates later, Gru and Lucy get married. I'm gonna just assume that means like a year later, even though again, nobody ages in this series. So what's the point of time passing? The second film did nearly as good as the first film in terms of reception by audiences and critics. It did make much more money, nearly $1 billion. Get ready for the one that breaks $1 billion. And I thought it was a cute story, even though I didn't think Gru really needed to get married, because I personally would have appreciated if this non-traditional family was it. But, you know, it's a sequel film. They're going to expand. They're going to add more characters. That's just how it's going to go. Lucy was okay. She kind of grew on me over time because I didn't like her originally. She's spunky and has lots of energy. She's a really eager go-getter kind of girl, and she likes Gru. I don't know, maybe it was just because I'm not a huge fan of Kristen Wiig, because I've seen her in so many things that you just kind of hear the voice for so long that you kind of just get tired of it. The Minions were doing their thing. I really liked when they were like in prison and the Summertime song came on, only because of nostalgia, I guess, because it was on one of the old Just Dance games, and my sister and me were very competitive with that one song in particular. Anyway, on to the next film, which is the prequel, Minions. So Minions came out in July 2015. In it, we get the origins of the Minions and their quest to serve the most evil person they can find. A quest that spans for millions of years. And sure, a T-Rex or a random caveman aren't necessarily evil. I don't know. Maybe they were evil at heart and the Minions could sense it. And it is kind of funny that they were there when the pyramids were being built and accidentally crushing the workers, only for the pyramid to get stolen thousands of years later. And I did think it was kind of funny that they were there with Napoleon while he was trying to invade Russia. I don't know. After they leave Napoleon, they find this ice cave to live in, and the first couple of decades are going well. But eventually they all develop depression because they just don't have anyone evil to serve. So Kevin decides he will go out and find them a boss. In this quest, he takes Stuart and Bob. The trio ends up in 1968's New York City, where after being locked in a store overnight, they find out about VillainCon. They try hitchhiking and get picked up by the Nelson family. They are perky, kind, supportive, criminals, and honestly the best humans in this movie. It turns out they were also going out to Orlando, Florida for VillainCon. And once they actually get to the convention, we get to meet Scarlet Overkill, who is the most popular villain, I guess. And coincidentally, she is hiring for Minions. And yes, our trio wins this competition by dumb luck. Scarlet takes them back to her home and introduces them to her husband Herb. And Scarlet's dream since she was little was to have the crown and be queen. And that's what she wants the Minions to do. Kind of vague, but you know, whatever. I'm sure many people would love a crown and would love to be queen. And what ends up happening is Bob pulling out the sword from the stone and being declared the one true king of England. He makes a speech, they're living the life, corgis, hot tub with fire hydrants, until Scarlet comes in rage that they stole this thing from her. Bob wants to give her the crown, but some butler tells him, no, that's not how it works. So Bob changes the law for Scarlet to be now queen. And this one couple in the background during this news broadcast is super cute. I thought it was funny. Scarlet has her husband Herb try to torture the Minions and everything, but it doesn't work. They're pretty indestructible. Honestly, Herb's so chill, he just doesn't even care halfway through. And Scarlet is getting ready for her coronation, pointing out that she made drawings of this moment when she was 5, so good for her. Achieving a lifelong dream. And is it a little weird that she's locking up the Minions who gave her the crown, just like the plan was for them to get her the crown? She's a villain. I'm not really gonna question her being mad and taking revenge on people for no reason. And it doesn't help that the trio breaks out of the dungeon and end up at the coronation, nearly dropping a chandelier on Scarlet, and she mistakes it for an assassination attempt. She catches Bob and Stuart and threatens to kill them if Kevin doesn't show up by morning. Kevin breaks into her house and goes into Herb's lab, where he uses one of his machines to turn giant. Scarlet fires missiles at Kevin, but he swallows it and doesn't die. The original queen is given her throne and crown back. She gives Bob a tiny crown for his teddy bear. Stuart gets an electric guitar, and she bestows a knighthood on Kevin, or something. Scarlet and Herb do make a last-ditch effort to steal the crown, only to get stopped by a young Gru, who freezes them with his signature freeze ray and runs off. And thus ends the movie with the Minions running after Gru, having finally found their new boss. And yes, on to the next film. So I'm not going to spend too much time going over the Minion movie and what I thought of it. The first half can be a little bit boring. Some of their antics in the beginning were cute, but I think the movie picks up once they actually get with the human characters and play off of them. And while Scarlet Overkill wasn't top tier villain, she did have a goal. She wanted the crown, she wanted to be queen. Was it a little muddied? Yes. Because the minions got the crown, but then they were king, and they even changed the laws for her to be queen, but she didn't trust them. But she's a paranoid villain, so, whatever. The Nelson family, though, they were the best family in the whole film. And another thing I really liked about both the Nelsons and Scarlet Overkill and her husband was how positive the relationships were. They were so nice and supportive and caring and goofy. They were just villains, though. I thought that was super cute, and I loved it. Originally, when I watched the film, I didn't think Gru really needed to show up at the end, but it only makes sense that he would show up because it's a Despicable Me thing, and he's the one people love, even though people love minions, but whatever. Bob is so cute. He is my favorite out of the trio. He's like millions of years old, and he acts like a wimpy little baby. But enough fun with minions. We gotta move on to Despicable Me 3. So in this film, Balthazar Brat is our villain. He was a TV star in the 80s, and his show got canceled once he hit puberty because he wasn't cute anymore. And he's just stuck in the past, and now he turned into a villain over it. And he's also voiced by Trey Parker, so to me it's just a Randy Marsh shenanigan happening in a Despicable Me film. Lucy and Gru fail to capture Brat in the beginning of the film, so they get fired from the AVL. But another stranger shows up at Gru's doorstep saying that his father has passed away and his brother Drew wants to finally meet him. His twin brother Drew. What is it with third film and this long-lost sibling or family member shows up that you didn't know existed or you thought they were dead? Anyway, this is a huge shock to Gru. He never knew he had a twin brother, and he didn't know that his father just died. He thought his father died when he was born because his mom said that his father died of embarrassment. So Gru's excited. They all fly off to some made-up country, and Drew tells Gru about how their dad was secretly a world-famous supervillain. You think Gru would have known or something, but I don't know, whatever. Drew wants Gru to show him how to be a villain because their father thought he couldn't do it. Gru is not interested because he's left that life behind. Nonetheless, he does come up with a heist, in which he's actually tricking Drew to go to Brat's Island and steal back a diamond that he stole in hopes of getting hired back at the AVL. So he's kind of trying to use Drew for his plan, but unlike the first movie, this is to do something good and not evil. Meanwhile, Lucy is trying to be a mom to the girls and bond with them, accidentally gets Margot engaged to a guy and puts her foot down. No, you're not marrying my daughter. Meanwhile, Agnes and Edith try to go find a unicorn. They didn't have a lot to do in this film. And while I haven't mentioned the minions yet, they kind of got mad at Gru in the beginning because they want to do evil again, and they thought they would do evil after he got fired. And he's like, no, guys, we're not doing that. Please don't go. And they leave angry. And then they go to prison. I don't remember why they went to prison, but they're there, and they're tough, and they're snapping their fingers. And eventually they miss Gru and all that, and they break out of prison. Not gonna lie, this movie was so forgettable, and I'm not going back to rewatch it. Gru fights Brat. He plays a guitar. He doesn't play the right notes on the guitar. Sorry, keytar, not guitar. And he wins. They all go back home, and even Drew is there. He sleeps with the minions. And the girls finally call Lucy Mom. Then Drew and the minions run off to do evil in the middle of the night, and Lucy and Gru go to stop him. The end. I think Dr. Nefaria was frozen in something, so he doesn't show up in this film much at all. So this film also grossed over $1 billion, and I don't personally enjoy it that much. I did like that Trey Parker was there doing a PG Randy Marsh, and he said that he only did the film because his daughter likes the movies, and that's really nice of him. If he wasn't in the film, we wouldn't have the Hug Me song, so, we got that. I thought some of the moments with the minions and Drew and Gru were fine, but all the girls kind of were sidelines, and I didn't really find their stories memorable or funny much. On to the next film, Minions 2, The Rise of Gru. So this film came out 7 years after the original Minions and 5 years after Despicable Me 3, so it's been a while. And people are ready for Minions, even though this film didn't hit the $1 billion mark, but still made over $900 million worldwide. So there's a lot going on in this film. It's 1976, Gru is 11 or 12. I've seen people say both. I'm just gonna say 12. And we have our villains for this movie. The Vicious Six, a supervillain team made of 6 people. Bella Bottom, Wild Knuckles, I don't know, a guy with a giant robot lobster arm. The one with the roller skates, and the nun, Nunchuck. The nun was actually one of my favorites. I love it. Anyway, the Vicious Six go out and get some special zodiac medallion, and it just so happens to almost be Chinese New Year. 5 of the members take the medallion and kick out Wild Knuckles, who was their leader. And they say it's because he's like old and he needs to make way for the newer villains and everything. But I don't know, the nun looks pretty old too. Anyway, Gru hangs out with some of his minions. He's building his first lair under the house. He has a little baby Kyle pet. And he gets an invitation to audition to be the newest member of the Vicious. They laugh at him, and while they're distracted, he steals their medallion. They do notice right away and try to chase after him and get it, but Otto takes it and trades it for a pet rock. So Gru gets super mad and tries to fire all the minions. Gru goes out trying to find the medallion, but Knuckles finds him and kidnaps him. So Kevin, Stuart, and Bob go after them to rescue Gru. Meanwhile, the boy who got the medallion gave it to his uncle, and Otto chases after him on a little toddler bike. So the minions find where Gru's at in San Francisco, but they're not strong enough to beat Wild Knuckles' goons, so they find this kung fu master who saved them in an alley, and she starts training them. Wild Knuckles' goons, they quit because they're not being paid, but also because they just got their butt kicked by an old lady. And so Knuckles starts getting Gru to do stuff around the house, and they start bonding. He takes them to the Bank of Evil to do a little scheme. And we see some more cameos from people we're going to see in the first film. And we see a picture of Vector as a kid, which I'm guessing means Vector and Gru are around the same age, but I thought Vector was a younger, cooler villain, so that. Otto also gets the medallion back from the uncle, and it turns out the uncle is really cool, and they just travel together to San Francisco on his motorcycle. And you know, they're goofing off, world's largest banana and all that. The Vicious Six also realized that Knuckles is still alive. They thought he was dead when they kicked him off the little hover car. And now they're also in San Francisco and destroy his house trying to find him. Then they head to Chinatown. Once Knuckles sees his house destroyed, he kind of just wants to give up villainy and tells Gru to just go. Otto is the first one to run into Gru, and he has the stone. Then the Vicious Six show up, and then the AVL show up, but the Vicious Six use the medallion and turn into these giant animal monster creatures. They're all part of the Zodiac. Bella is the dragon. I don't remember what the other ones are off the top of my head. Hers was the most memorable, so who cares? Kevin, Stuart, and Bob find Gru, and they try to fight, but they are turned into a rabbit, a rooster, and a goat. Knuckles shows up and fights with them. Everybody's fighting. Now that Stuart, Kevin, and Bob have found their inner beasts like their master told them. Gru gets the medallion and uses it to turn them into rats. Knuckles gets hurt, Gru rehires the minions, and there's also a baby chicken minion that we sadly will never see again. The Vicious Six are arrested. Knuckles is presumed dead. He actually fakes his death. Gru finds this out after he gives his heartfelt eulogy, and he's just like relieved. So Gru, Knuckles, and the minions drive away. This is also the film where Gru met Dr. Nefario. He gave him his invention in the beginning that helped him steal the medallion, and he agrees to work with Gru. And then we get a bunch of cute little doodles in the credit scenes. So this film had a lot going on. There were way more storylines than the first Minions film, but critics-wise, it did much better than Minions. People enjoyed it far more. I think it did a really good job of balancing everyone's storylines and also just showing us little things of like how Gru was in his childhood that we see further along in the original movie. Although stuff doesn't make sense. Like, he uses a cheese ray instead of a freeze ray, and it's like, why is he using a cheese ray when he used a freeze ray in the first Minions movie? Like, he already did it, you know? The trio was the trio. They all were cute and funny during the kung fu training scene and all that, but I liked Otto way more than I liked them. We see Gru not having the most nurturing environment with his mother or with anyone at school, so it was really cute to see his relationship with the minions and how they're sort of like his family. And the bond he shared with Knuckles because he was learning a lot from him and he looked up to him, and it was a special connection to him because he doesn't really have any adults in his life acknowledging him in such a positive way. Dr. Nefario was kind of like positive, but I don't know. They don't really like bond. They basically met and talked for like 10 minutes. I'm surprised this film didn't hit the $1 billion mark. Like, it was close, but what else was there this summer that people were going to go see for a PG film, right? There was the Bob's Burger movie, Jurassic World, but I don't know. Okay, finally, Despicable Me 4. I didn't think I was going to include it in this video, but you know, this video took longer to edit than I thought, so might as well include it since I saw it. And I'm sure you might have heard at this point from other people about how it was not good, it was mid, it was bad. Personally, there was a lot of plot points. 1. Gru takes down Maxine, a guy from his high school, and Maxine breaks out of prison. Gru's family goes into hiding. Shenanigans. Lucy is a hairdresser that messes up her one client. Agnes and Edith take one karate class. Margot goes to school. Gru has a baby boy named Gru Jr. I know, another really creative name. They only got 3 minions. Most of the minions went to the AVL, and some of them were selected to be prototype superheroes. They are turned into Cyclops, The Thing, Hulk, Mr. Incredible, and Conehead. The one night they go out to do superhero stuff does not go well, and they go to live normal lives for like a few hours. Then there's Poppy, the next door neighbor. She wants to be a villainess. She recognizes Gru. Why wouldn't she? He's a famous villain. And she blackmails him to help her kidnap a honey badger from the villain high school that she wants to go to. Then Lucy and Gru go to a country club while Maxine shows up and kidnaps Gru Jr. There is not a large fight. They go home. And you've most likely already seen this clip. Gru goes to the prison to talk to Maxine because Maxine hated Gru because he sang the same song he wanted to sing at a talent show, and Gru's like, yes, I did it on purpose. And then they have a talent show at the prison where all the past villains come out and they all sing Everyone Wants to Rule the World, and it's very sweet. And the end. There's not a lot to say about this movie without getting into the details. Poppy was definitely the best part, but this couldn't be a bunch of random storylines that barely connected or had anything to do with one another and slapped together. The girls have even less to do this movie. We see nothing of school. We saw barely anything with karate. And unlike all the other films, there's no major battle at the end. Gru Jr. is turned into some baby cockroach, and then he's just cured by Dr. Nefario off screen. And I don't even know if Dr. Nefario even spoke in this movie. He just showed up for like half a minute. And it's such a letdown, especially when you have Rise of Gru before this that I thought did really great with the story. And even though I think it's the weakest movie in the franchise, you can still get like enjoyment from watching it. I just don't think it's that great of a movie. Okay, so now I'm gonna rank all the movies. Okay, so this will be my personal ranking of all the movies. First, Despicable Me. Second, Despicable Me. Rise of Gru. Minions. Despicable Me 3. Despicable Me 4. There's like 20 shorts, but I'm not going to watch all the shorts in one video. That's like too much. It's just going to be a separate thing. This franchise has been going on like, what, 15 years now? I know a lot of people don't like it for various reasons. They think the art's ugly. We can sit here all day about if art is ugly or good. They don't like Minions because Minions ruined their Facebook feed. I enjoyed the messages of the movie, mostly about love and family. The first film is all about finding love and meaning, not through your work, but through people you connect to. And it's family love. And then in the second film, it's the same thing, but like romantic love. Minions is all about finding where you belong in the world, and Scarlet wasn't it, but it led them to Gru, and that's where they belong. Despicable Me was about siblings and not letting go of the past. Brat not letting go of the 80s. Drew wanting to hold up the villain side of their family. Rise of Gru was about mentorship and connections and support, working out the kinks in your relationship. Despicable Me 4 was about high school. Despicable Me 4 was about changes and how no matter what changes, your family will always be there for you. And I still really like the first film, and I always like how it did launch Illumination to be like this big studio. It's still not as big as like, I don't know, Paramount or whatever, but it's a major thing for this new studio to come out with this one movie and it just blows up. And I can only consider it a good thing. Sure, I don't like all the celebrity voices. It can be too much at times. What's the point of having Miranda Cosgrove there if she's just going to say like, what, 100 words? I don't know how many more movies they're going to make or what they're going to do with Despicable Me. And I know Gru is supposed to be like the main character, but you can just focus on the existing relationships and the changes that come with relationships. You don't need to add a baby for him to have this new relationship he needs to navigate. We already know he's a good and caring father. He takes care of his brother. Him and his wife get along. Him and his mother, not so much. She wasn't even in the last movie. The mother is just one of those characters that are just like, I clothed and fed you for 18 years and you reached adulthood. And that's her massive achievement. And she took Gru to VillainCon. In conclusion, I really want Illumination to make a Luigi's Mansion movie. And the Despicable Me franchise is a good franchise. It's been going on a long time. Some of the movies aren't as good as the others, but they're enjoyable. They have so many visual gags, and I find that so charming. I enjoyed Gru's journey. I like how no matter what life you had or what life you're living, things can always change. People can always redeem themselves and form genuine connections with people. And sometimes it takes millions of years to find a connection with somebody, but you find them and it turns your world around. And that's Despicable Me. Bye.